This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's our phone number. If you would like to join us, please give us a call. You can also use Discord. You can find out more at discord.lrn.fm. But the long and the short of it is you load up a little app on your smartphone or on your laptop or your computing device. You use your high-speed internet connection and your microphone, and you will sound like you are right here in the studio with us. And in studio right now, we have myself, Chris.
Hey, it's Ian.
And we're hoping you'll join us, too. We've got a million different ways you can tune in. You can, God, could we name them all? Is that even possible?
Down one.
We are down one because we just got a message from the fine folks at Twitch that they found us in violation of something other.
It's our first ban from Twitch, twitch.tv. Based on a review of your activity or content, we have issued a community guidelines strike on your account. As a result, your access to Twitch services is restricted. Reason? Creating or sharing content featuring nudity.
That was not me, Ian.
No, and it wasn't me either.
All right. Could that be another show on LRN?
Well, I'm thinking maybe it might be Aria's Uncensored show, which is exclusive. It's not on LRN.FM as far as, like, there's not an audio-only version there. But it is a video-exclusive internet thing that started, I think, on Twitch and now is on Twitch and DLive. And it's noteworthy because she's been doing it topless. Now, for those that aren't familiar, Aria DiMezzo she describes herself as a shemale. Okay, so born male, still has the unit between her legs, but dresses and presents herself as female. Rich Paul now joining us. Hello, Rich.
Hey.
So we're just
and has boobs.
Yes, and has man boobs. I wouldn't say like boob.
She's not that far along yet.
No, she's trying to grow them though.
But I've seen them bloom on 30-year-olds before.
Okay.
And they get better.
Right, and they are not. It's not Raquel Welch. She has more of, I would say, like a model's physique, tall and thin.
Very tall, very thin.
I think that shape. I don't want to. God, I'm going to get in trouble. It's referred to as a banana.
It's generally discouraged to discuss your coworkers' bodies at work. So maybe we should just move on.
I'm going to go ahead and do it. But that is like there's a hourglass physique. There's an apple physique. This is known as a banana physique, which may be apropos. So tall.
Okay, I'm just going to leave that laying there.
I thought you might
keep going. Move it along.
But interesting.
But
the fine folks at Twitch just decided they'd had enough of that.
Well, they haven't specified which show it was, so we don't know for sure. But Aria kind of figured that there was a chance that her show would get the channel banned.
Gotcha.
And I was willing to take that risk because last year in 2018, during the first summer that we were on Twitch, there were multiple days on which we had topless men in the studio. Because it's hot outside, and it's kind of warm in the studio, so might as well take your top off. And we were not banned for any of those shows. So this does lead to the question of, well, what exactly is a violation of their policy? Because it's pretty nebulous when you actually pull it up and read it. It's not crystal clear what they mean. Obviously nudity legally is generally considered to be the genitals. And breasts do not qualify as nudity from that, definition.
That varies a great deal from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. It's true in New Hampshire state, but not true in Laconia, for example. Laconia has a local ordinance which criminalizes nipples, which is how the Free the Nipple girls got arrested.
That's different than criminalizing nudity. The Laconia ordinance criminalizes topless females specifically. You can be a topless male and show your nipples all day long, and that's no problem there. So the question is, does Twitch have a rule for men versus women? Is it a consistent rule? Is it that all topless humans are banned from the Twitch platform, or is it only the ones who are presenting as though they are women? And I think this is something that Aria's been looking forward to, because now she gets to call them out.
The left answer is she's a woman, and therefore she should be held to the same rules as any other woman, because, you know, for the left, rules follow gender. For the right, I don't know. I guess Chris Cantwell would have to say that she's a man, and therefore she should not be banned for female toplessness.
Well, again, unless Twitch's policy is that all toplessness should be prohibited.
Right. Yeah,
and it could be that
It's possible. I would be shocked if it was that.
And so they say
if
here
it
in
made
their
that much sense.
They say here in their notice that the content related to the violation may be removed. So after the suspension is over, which they're going to let us back on 3 days from now, apparently, after the suspension is over, then we might be able to log in and actually see what it was that has been removed from the channel. But there may be some sort of a appeals process, and we will see if they can get more specific with what the problem was.
See, this is a demonstration of why we need a truly distributed social media platform, I think. I mean, until you're actually broadcasting your own media from your own place, from your own server that you control, somebody is out there to sue. And the thing is, you can sue Facebook, okay, and make them take down all kinds of content. Or you can intimidate Facebook very easily, especially if you happen to be a government, okay?
Sure.
But the thing is, you can't just sue 100 million people, you know? So if or how many users does Facebook have? 1 billion people. So in order to institute a policy across a distributed network, they would have to take 1 billion different people to court. And they can't do it. So we have to, I think, make another leap. The history of computer science has been do it on the client side, then do it on the server side, then do it on the client side, then do it on the server side. Well, what I'm saying is we need to go back to a more distributed, more client-side model of serving content if we want to be able to speak freely.
Yeah, and if assuming, like Rich, if you were to come up with a distributed or even a centralized media platform, I think you would probably be a benevolent dictator. I would no,
because somebody would piss me off. Somebody would piss me off, and I'd say, you can't say that because I'm human too. And somebody's going to say something that just rubs me the wrong damn way, or I'm going to have a bad day, or some employee of mine will, or the CIA will pay off some employee of mine. Until we're in control of our own stuff.
Right.
This is not Freer Talk Live. I remembered that.
Exactly. Right. But in the meantime, we can choose who we do business with. And this is the thing that drives me nuts.
But if we're doing business with a big platform, we're still a big... Why did they shut Napster down, but they couldn't shut BitTorrent down? The reason is because BitTorrent is decentralized and Napster is a centralized platform.
I understand all that.
The thing is, if they can't get you, they'll take out your whole platform. Right. If they can't get your platform to deplatform you, they'll deplatform your platform.
I am decentralized. I don't have to choose anything. I can choose nothing at all if I wish. Or I can choose to go with the Zucks of the world. And, I know that my stuff is liable to be taken down, or I'll get thrown in Facebook jail or whatever, and I can go on Twitter, or I can choose Mastodon. That choice is mine.
Now, Mastodon is much better in design than Facebook because there's
Let's come back and
servers.
We can talk about it here. There's actually thousands of them in Mastodon's case.
Absolutely.
Yes.
855-450-FREE. What do you think? We need to be in a decentralized world. How are we going to get there? This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's our phone number. That's 855-450-3733. If you would like to join us, you can watch or listen a plethora of ways, except for twitch.tv tonight.
Not
unfortunately.
anymore. Not for the next 3 days.
Yeah, so we got that going on, a little temporary, we hope temporary ban, but there's...
It is temporary, but who knows what the reason is, and we're still going to investigate that. And if we can make some hay out of this, we're gonna.
Right?
Because a lot of these, websites, like Twitch, these platforms, are run by people who probably have a leftist viewpoint,
Yeah.
In the tech world, it's either they're libertarians or they're leftists generally when it comes to programmers and people like that. And so their policy about being naked on camera is it's not allowed that you're naked, but the question is, what is nudity? They don't define it.
Right.
What they do talk about in their policy, which I don't have pulled up in front of me right now, but their community guidelines, it's this nebulous phrasing about how you're supposed to wear clothing that's appropriate for the occasion or appropriate for how you would normally dress or whatever. So if you, let's say, you're out on the beach doing a live stream with your cell phone, which is something you can do with Twitch. There's these what they call IRL streamers. For folks that don't know, Twitch is a streaming video service. IRL standing for in real life. And so, they'll take you with them to their shopping trip or to the beach or to, wherever it is that they're going. They're cooking in the kitchen.
Okay.
This is their IRL stream.
That makes sense.
So the idea is, well, if you're on the beach, then of course you don't need to be in a full-on, bodysuit or whatever. You could wear whatever you would normally wear at the beach, which would mean that in theory, men could be topless on that video. Well, if it's hot outside and you're topless inside your house while you're playing video games because it's hot in the room with a computer in it, as it can be, what's wrong with that? So where do they draw these lines? How do they draw them? How arbitrary is all of this? We don't know, but I know this is what Aria's been waiting for. So hopefully, them going after somebody who's trans, because they didn't ban our channel when Chris Cantwell came on. Because we were afraid that having this Nazi on the channel would definitely, trigger the people that are the administrators.
I wonder if they make a distinction between a Nazi host and a Nazi guest.
I don't know. I mean, if you're Nazi
we
guest,
did bring him in and beat him up.
Well, true. Like, we don't let him get away with, being the worst person that he could possibly be on the air with us. So he is tempered to some extent, and he certainly is opposed in his viewpoint. So maybe that's why they left it alone. But it's just, it's an interesting development. And so sorry for anybody that's inconvenienced. Hopefully you're watching us on DLive instead over at dlive.lrn.fm. Of course, you can also listen anytime at lrn.fm.
This might not be a bad time to pitch the libertarian hippie versus Nazi.
That's, that was going to be tomorrow night. It is still, right? Because you're going to be down, one platform.
I'll still do it.
Okay.
So it's going to be on DLive?
DLive exclusive.
All right.
Tell me more. Again, what is this?
Basically, it's going to be Ian on the board, I believe, with myself and Cantwell at the other two mics, and
I'm just going to be running the producing things.
He's going to be producing.
Basically, everybody wants their shot at Cantwell.
Exactly.
Is what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah. So basically, I'm going to debate him, not necessarily specific topics, but. You don't have to talk to Cantwell long until you come up with something to argue with him about.
Yeah, and you're going to get some specific topics, I have no doubt.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see, because we've had Chris Cantwell, for listeners that don't know, former Free Talk Live co-host who used to be like just a kind of a crass libertarian comedian. That used to be his personality. Yeah. And then he left the libertarian movement and joined the alt-right, basically becoming a Nazi. He showed up at the Charlottesville rally back in August of 2017, where he and others were arrested later for their participation in the fighting that broke out at that rally, ultimately being put in jail for several months, let out on bond eventually, and then essentially copped a plea deal to avoid felony charges and was banned from the state of Virginia for a period of 5 years, has since returned to Keene, New Hampshire, here where he lives.
Yeah, and I would say prominently came to fame or infamy because of a Vice news story that was broadcast right after the things that happened in Charlottesville. And when I'd say things, I consider it a tragedy. There was a young woman who was killed.
Yeah,
right.
And this was, and I'm going to be one of those people that's, I just think there's plenty of blame to go around. And I think it was two sides that should have stayed apart but couldn't resist coming together and surprise bad things happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And really, I mean, if I have to assign more blame, since those sides identify themselves as left and right, I would say the greatest blame for that probably goes to the leftists in a lot of ways, because this was a bunch of people decided to have a demonstration, and then a bunch of other people decided to go down and stop them from having a demonstration.
That was the Antifa.
That was Antifa.
Who Joe Biden today was calling basically heroes, and I don't know if you saw this.
Well,
but
they will be his stormtroopers, I'm sure, if he gets the
he was totally
nomination.
pandering.
They'll be his brown shirt.
Totally pandering to these people. Did you see this thing, the Biden presidential announcement?
Did Joe
video?
give them a big warm hug from behind?
I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Good
I
question.
wonder, you know what I want to find out?
I did not.
What kind of shampoo does Joe Biden's wife use?
Why do you ask?
Head and Shoulders.
Because her hair must smell terrific if he's the one if she's the one he picked. So
$8.55, $4.50 free.
Either that or she's got some political connections and it's total marriage of convenience.
Could be.
Yeah. I don't know that I ever knew the Joe Biden story, but I'm sure there is one that involves money and power and connections.
Well, the only reason why I saw this, because I don't pay attention to what Joe Biden or any of these other politicians do, is I happened to get a message from Chris Cantwell earlier today, basically bragging because he's in the Joe Biden campaign announcement video.
Oh, wow.
Jeez, okay.
It's a 3-minute long video where Biden talks about Charlottesville. And, of course, they play footage from, the thing that happened there, the fight.
And the Vice article, or Vice story.
I don't think they had
sure.
any Vice clips.
Oh, interesting.
There. Maybe some of the footage was from Vice.
Yeah.
Was from Vice. It could have been. And he just basically lavishes praise on the Antifa that was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it sounds innocuous. Oh, I'm anti-fascist. Well, who isn't these days?
Right.
Besides Cantwell. But, the thing is, even a fool, a communist, a fascist has a right to speak.
Right.
You have a right to be wrong, and you have a right to prove to the world just how wrong you are, so long as you don't violate the equal rights of others.
Absolutely, and that's what it's about. It's about allowing people to say what they wish, even if we disagree with them. 855, 450 free. What do you think? Should Joe Biden be bringing out Antifa for the candidacy? Is this where he wants to take this? This is Free Talk Live.
I want to tell you about my favorite cryptocurrency wallet, Edge Wallet at edge.app. Edge is the wallet I use more than any other, and that was true long before Edge Wallet became a sponsor of Free Talk Live. Edge Wallet allows you to buy, sell, trade, and securely hold your cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, tokens, Monero, Ripple, Dash, Bitcoin Cash, and more. It's available for both Android and iOS, and you can download it via the Play or App Store or via Edge Wallet's website, edge.app. Secure your freedom with Edge Wallet.
This is Free Talk Live. 855 450 free. That's 855 450 3733. That's our toll-free number. There's a lot of ways to get in touch with us. You can hit us up on Twitch. Excuse me.
Cannot.
No, you cannot. See, it's like missing an old friend. We've recently been notified that one of our outlets here has been we've been put in Twitch jail. So we're waiting to find out exactly what that means. I was gonna say What was I going to say, Ian? What's the
maybe
Discord?
you're giving out the phone
Thank
numbers?
you. Yes, I did give out the phone
Okay.
numbers. I also, if you do want to get on the air, you can hit us up on Discord. .lrn.fm. Discord will allow you to sound like you're right in studio with us with your high-speed internet connection and your quality microphone. But I did also want to tell you about Bitcoin.com. Bitcoin.com is your premier source for everything Bitcoin Cash related. Bitcoin.com can help you choose a Bitcoin Cash wallet, buy Bitcoin Cash, and show you where you can spend your hard-earned Bitcoin Cash. You can also read the latest news or engage with the community on the Bitcoin Cash forums. Learn more at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com. So, Rich, you look perplexed.
Oh, do I?
Or is that just the result of...
well, I'm not thinking about anything I'm going to talk about on the air, but carry on.
That's okay, but I'll tell you what I am going to talk about, and that's trade wars. You know, the idea
BBS
that we
game
can...
from
What's that?
Oh,
the
wow.
old BBS game from 1990s.
I remember that.
Yeah, I used
Except
to play
I
that
don't-
all the time. The Ferengi.
I don't know
That's
if
where I first encountered the Ferengi. I hadn't seen Star Trek: The Next Generation yet.
Did I really wait till the 90s before I played Trade Wars? I don't think so.
Maybe it was in the late...
Did it exist
I
in the
guess,
late 80s?
Yeah, it would have been in the 80s.
Why am I?
'cause,
I'm seeming to think that. I think that because
I remember
we
the
had
one
all
I
kinds
really
of stuff
liked
on
was
bulletin
Trade
boards.
Wars 2000.
Interesting.
Which, but it didn't come out in 2000.
No,
it came out in,
Yes, folks, there are people out there like Rich and I, at least, who remember gaming before the internet and communicating and doing email and all those things that we sort of take for granted today. Before there really was a public internet, we used to dial into bulletin boards and interact with other people, and then people started to connect bulletin boards together, which was kind of cool. And then a few bulletin boards, I remember the first one in our area, was able to set up a sort of an interface to early internet programs, things like Gopher for files. And I remember the first one that had links, which was the World Wide Web browser. And that was pretty intriguing. But even before all this stuff, I had my first email address. We were trying to date this, but I think it was like 1981 or 1982 through, what am I thinking of? CompuServe. So CompuServe, has had email. You could message other users. It wasn't an open system, but anybody else who was using CompuServe, we could do that. And they had chat, so you could do online chat through their CB simulator.
Mm-hmm.
That was the big thing. But before that nice distraction with trade wars, the Trumpster has found out that trade wars are not quite as easy to win as he would have thought.
Should have asked an Austrian economist. Nobody
shoulda
wins a
asked.
trade war. Sometimes one side loses more than the other side loses, but they both lose.
Everybody loses. After overpromising the benefits and underestimating the costs, reality is starting to puncture the White House's message on trade. This comes to us from Reason.com. Eric Boehm writes, speaking at the National Press Club this week, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow touted one of the more promised benefits of the newly rewritten trade deal between the United States, Mexico, and Canada: more American jobs. Quote, they came out with about $65 billion increase in, and is in parentheses, in gross domestic product, and I think 700,000 or 800,000 jobs, Kudlow said, referring to the U.S. International Trade Commission's recent analysis of the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, or USMCA. Quote, I'll call it 1 million just to round things up, unquote, Kudlow added. According to Politico, he should have rounded down. Shortly after Kudlow finished speaking, the White House's National Economic Council had to issue an embarrassing statement correcting the record. The Trade Commission's analysis of the USMCA estimated that the new deal would create 170,000 jobs, not 700,000 or 800,000 or a million. 170,000 new jobs.
17% of what he claimed.
Whoopsie daisy. Everyone makes mistakes from time to time, and 170,000 new jobs are nothing to sneeze at. But the incident
How
was
much
another.
do they cost per job, though?
Exactly. But the incident was another reminder of how reality is starting to puncture the Trump administration's fantasy world, in which tariffs are paid by other countries and, quote, trade is bad, unquote.
Tariffs are paid by people in the United States.
Surprised. How many of you listening realize that when Donald Trump talks about these new tariffs on steel and aluminum and we're going to set things right, how many people listening know that you are the one who is paying the tariff?
Does Trump even know?
Do you really? I don't think he does. He's given no indication, or at least he's not saying it out loud. But when he increases a tariff on a product, let's say aluminum, I'm going to make the price of aluminum higher because we're going to make these prices artificially higher by increasing the cost. Right. That means that when you buy things made out of aluminum, the cost of that goes up. Who buys that?
Consumers.
Ultimately.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, a consumer is not going to...
consumers always buy it. The only difference is if it's producer goods, then consumers buy it indirectly when they buy the goods that the producer goods produce.
Presuming they do. I mean, the producer could buy a bunch of aluminum, then go out of business.
Yeah, that's possible.
Yeah. But yes, generally the costs are passed on to the consumer.
So basically the purpose is to allow businesses here to raise their prices or to make more sales. And generally they do something between the two.
Right, or to protect or to get votes. And I hate to sound cynical here, but if I go out and I say...
Well, the purpose of everything a politician does, the stated purpose of everything a politician does is to get votes, because that's how they stay in office.
Exactly. But when he says we are going to keep these steel jobs here in America, no more buying overseas and stuff like that, that's just messing with economics. And what you're doing is you are making those products more expensive for U.S. consumers. So we will buy less things with steel. We'll buy less things with aluminum because the price goes up. Yeah. We'll look for alternatives. That's what people do. That's what consumers do.
And every time we do this, every time you make an arbitrary change like that, things in the economy move around.
They do.
Some companies make more money. Some companies make less money. Some companies go out of business. New companies are created. And if you're doing it for an arbitrary reason, like somebody passed a law, that's inefficiency. That means you're going to get less goods for your money in the long run.
And that's a good point, Rich, because we can kind of quantify that. There are economists, smart economists, that actually look at the actual numbers that come out of different segments. And what we've seen in trade wars in the past is, let's say we increase the price of tariffs on steel, and as a result, consumption goes down, but jobs in steel go up. There's more jobs, but what happens? It's a net loss. It doesn't win. You can't bake this thing like it's going to make anybody any money over the long term. 855-450-FREE. What do you think? Tariffs, good idea, bad idea? Are you a Trump fan? Give us a call, 855-450-FREE. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's our phone number. It's 855-450-3733. Hit us up, toll free. We'd love to hear from you. And we have been talking about, amongst other things, Trump's, I guess it's a revelation that trade wars aren't just as easy to win as one would expect.
The only way to win is not to play.
I think you're exactly right. And Trump gleefully stated early on that it'll be, quote, a good and easy win, unquote. It is now increasingly obvious that the president and many of his top economic advisors oversold the benefits and underestimated the costs of trade policies that have caused America to clash with not just Canada and Mexico, but China, Japan, Europe, and other major trading partners. We may get some jobs growth in the USMCA, and that is the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, which rewrites the decades-old North American Free Trade Agreement. That's NAFTA, or gets approved by Congress. But most studies of Trump's other trade policies have found economic damage. Tariffs are draining $1.4 billion out of the U.S. economy every month, according to a comprehensive review published in March by a trio of economists from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. New jobs created in steel and aluminum manufacturing have come at steep prices, and the trade deficit that Trump vowed to reduce has continued growing.
And the retaliation, so-called, shows that economic ignorance is not limited to Trump. Okay, because if you're China, okay, and the Trump administration is imposing a tariff. Okay, they're hurting their own citizens. So it's like they're cutting themselves, but they're also inconveniencing China. So it's like you cut yourself and you bled on China's shoes. Well, how is China going to react? They're going to cut themselves and bleed on your shoes. Well, this is not a good plan.
At some point, everybody runs out of blood.
Yeah, this just cutting out your blood to spite your shoes.
That's it. Well, we are going to go to the Discord, and we haven't really screened this call, so I'm going to keep my hand close to the dump button. But we're going to try going to Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, you're on Free Talk Live.
No pics, Dick.
Hey, got any oil there?
I refuse to answer that question on the grounds that my response might tend to incriminate me.
Anyways, spoilers. The Libertarian Party dies in Avengers Endgame.
Is that a spoiler?
I know, right?
Right.
But anyways, so I'm wondering. So here's what I'm wondering. So right now, Julian Assange is being arrested
again
for something. Yeah, but he's being prosecuted for something that was clearly protected by the First Amendment.
Are you talking about the United States prosecution?
Yeah. He's not saying he's being arrested. He means he's been arrested,
right?
And now he's being held.
But the charges, yes.
But are you talking about the prosecution in the United States that he has yet to actually face? Okay, because there's also the prosecution in the UK for missing court, and that's what he's been sentenced to jail, I think.
How much jail?
I'm not sure if it's time served or if they're going to keep him for some amount of time. Maybe the sentencing hasn't happened yet.
Go ahead, Dick.
But the ACLU is not talking about this. Instead, the ACLU is making sure that private corporations or private institutions have to abide by anti-discrimination laws. And I was wondering, what do you think happened to the ACLU? Because the ACLU, way back in the day, they actually used to be pro-freedom, and they would actually, defend the rights of people who were actually egregious individuals. Like, I think at one point there was the infamous case where there were the Nazis that were marching through, I think, a Jewish community in Illinois, and the
ACLU has defended pretty despicable people for freedom of speech rights in a number of different cases. In fact, they even got involved in the Charlottesville situation on the side of the Nazis.
But they've always been, I mean, the guys who founded the ACLU, as I understand it, were more or less communist socialists. I mean, they were pretty far left, so they never recognized that you had a right to trade or not to trade with people as you chose, because that's not something that socialists believe in. Socialists believe that you should be forced to work for anybody who wants to employ you, whether you want to work for them or not. Or at least in the context of customers.
Yeah, I would say this to answer your question, Dick, that the ACLU at the national level has, over the last few years, definitely gone stronger to the left. Although I agree with Rich, they've historically always been a left-leaning organization, even though they're pretty consistent with their free speech principles and will defend people who are on the right for freedom of speech. So, like, kudos to the ACLU for that. But they've definitely gone stronger to the left because it makes them money. They've had a bunch of people sign up for memberships. We're talking like tripling their membership since Trump took office. So they are absolutely interested in more money, just like any organization is. And so if they make their rhetoric more towards the left, they're going to appease those members.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And it's kind of sad. I mean, I guess to support a full liberty platform, you'd have to support what? Institute for Justice, Gun Owners of America, because I don't think IJ really does guns.
Great organization. I mean, Gun Owners of America is really underrated, and it's about a gazillion times better than the NRA.
Yeah, the NRA is compromisers. We don't need AR-15s. We need M16s.
Yeah. Well, I love how the left always goes after the NRA. It's like, well, the NRA is probably the most moderate part of the pro-2A group.
I don't even know if I consider them pro-2A. Yeah. At this point, I mean, they really are actively going after our rights. Hey, Dick, thank you so much for the call. Good call. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that discussion, though, if I could, that the New Hampshire ACLU is very pro-liberty.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been going to they've got a yearly Bill of Rights awards dinner that I've attended for 6 years now in a row, and I intend to attend it again this year. And yes, they are leftist. I mean, they definitely still lean to the left. There's no doubt about it. They're concerned with reproductive rights. They're concerned with protecting trans people's access to things, and the thing that he had called in about. But 9 times out of 10, when you see them in the State House, they're there advocating in favor of privacy, in favor of freedom of speech, in favor of things that libertarians absolutely support. I've said this. Darryl Perry has said this as well. The ACLU in New Hampshire is as much of a pro-liberty organization as the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance is. Like, they're both very good organizations that help stand up for freedom. And the nice thing about the ACLU is they'll sue you. Meaning the government.
That they will.
They'll sue the government.
Oh, they will.
The New Hampshire Liberty Alliance is this organization, for listeners that don't know, that some free staters
They're an educational industry. They're not legal advocacy.
They do a good job. They help inform the state representatives on how they should vote. If they want to vote in a pro-freedom manner, they come out with what they call the gold standard, which has literally voting recommendations. And then they hand out 400 of these things to the state reps and 24 of them to the state senators before they vote every single week. So they're constantly doing a lot of work. They're reviewing bills, but they don't sue anybody. And when the government crosses the line, the ACLU takes them to court. Yep. And that's really good stuff.
Yeah, it really is, and I kind of want to emulate that with the church that will sue the government.
Yeah, if only I had a bunch of lawyers who were willing to work for it.
Well, that's the thing. That's what we need. But
the ACLU's got them.
Well, it may well be if I've told you about some of the irons I got in the fire. The church might make us all rich.
What I believe is that freedom and liberty can make for strange bedfellows, and I've grown up pretty conservatively, and I'm eager to work with the ACLU. That's great, and more conservative, liberty-loving people should too.
Yeah, well, I'll work with anybody on an issue where they're right.
Right,
just about.
Absolutely.
Except Cantwell.
Except for Cantwell. That's understandable.
He's not right on it very much at all these days.
I was going to say.
Well, that's the thing. He doesn't have any issues right.
He's so far off the reservation. I mean, he's turned into a total statist. It's really sad.
It is.
It's going to be fun to debate tomorrow, though.
Yeah.
But when we return, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about trade. Maybe we'll move on to other topics. What I hope we get is your phone calls at 855-450-FREE. We want to talk to you. Tell us what's on your mind. This is Free Talk Live.
Did you know you can legally exit the U.S. federal income tax system? Well, it's true, and thousands of American nationals are doing it. The 16th Amendment and the Internal Revenue Code are legal, but only in a limited jurisdiction. This is the basis behind the voluntary nature of the income tax. Learn the exit strategy provided by Congress. Find out more by visiting weissparis.com and watch our numerous videos. That's WEISS Paris.com.
Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 upon us already. Time flies when you're having fun. At least I'm having fun. Rich, are you having fun?
I'm so happy I could just plot.
Well, there you go. But Rich, Ian, and myself, Chris, are in studio. I wanted to tell you a little bit about ForkFest. Not just any ForkFest, ForkFest 2019. Like it was so important, we even gave it a number. Nice. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians this summer from June 13th until June 18th for ForkFest 2019 at beautiful Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest happens right before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's another very well-known liberty event. And ForkFest is decentralized, which means no one is in charge. That also means there's no ticket cost. Just reserve your camping or RV site or hotel room with Rogers Campground from June 13th to the 18th. You can simply relax and go camping with other liberty lovers, or you can create whatever experience or event you'd like others to have. If you're planning an event for ForkFest, be sure to let others know in advance. You can connect with other ForkFesters via the unofficial Telegram chat or the ForkFest forum. Links to those are on the unofficial website, forkfest.party. That's forkfest.party. I hope to see some people up there. I'm going to do everything I possibly can to get away from the grind of retail and make it up there and see some people.
Groovy. I hope I'll see you there because I love both Porkfest and Forkfest rock.
Right, and I think Rich Paul goes with the same goal every time I talk about going, which is I'm going to get Chris high.
Huh?
I'm
going to get Chris high? Oh, well.
You brought that up.
I mean,
like
that's
every time I go
my
up there, because I'm not like a major partier. I'm not the guy who's having a lot of that kind of fun. Mm-hmm. But every time, I remember talking to you about Porkfest.
I don't know, man. I've seen you rolling around with a cooler full of beers and
yeah.
like that.
I drink a lot, but I don't often partake of the devil's
kind of
lettuce.
Okay.
Right.
Vaguely.
Yeah, once or twice.
It's still better living through chemistry.
It is. But we're going to go better. Well, I was going to, but we lost one. We're going to go to the Discord where we've got Bad Slave. Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
He's not on yet.
Ooh, let me try that again. That's that whole join the room first.
Right, and the other thing with Bad Slave is he always has some sort of speakers up in the background, so you always want to screen his call first.
Bad Slave, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
I'm here.
And can you?
Right. Yeah, you can't go to Bad Slave without screening him because he's constantly.
Yep. Then I'm going to put him back on hold.
Yep.
But hopefully we'll get to him here in just a moment. In the meantime, we also have Tom from New Hampshire. Tom was on the line and he dropped off, but he's back. Tom, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, you were talking about rounding up how many jobs were created earlier.
Well, I wasn't rounding them up. The Trump administration was suggesting we round them up.
You know what would be hilarious is if somebody ran for president on a platform promising they're going to round up large numbers of illegal aliens, okay? And then after they get into office, they find out the numbers of illegal aliens in each state. Okay, your state has 99,000 illegal aliens. Let's call it 100,000. And that's how they fulfill their campaign promise to go and round up large numbers of illegal aliens, okay? Round them up, round up the numbers. And, of course, the morons who, would have voted for Trump thought that the candidate was going to round up the illegal aliens themselves. Oh, no. The candidate is going to round up numbers.
Just the numbers. I kind of like where you're going with this. Instead of pointless actions, just round up the numbers. Yeah,
it would be the truth. But anyway, what I'm getting at here is the basis for foreign aid is that supposedly these other countries are broke and they need stolen money from the United States economy, when the reason that they're broke is because their governments are so crooked with illegal clandestine corruption and also the overt kind, like, in the United States, the examples would be zoning variances to keep out the working class people and taxi medallions so that the taxi drivers will keep reelecting those candidates and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That kind of bureaucracy is worse in other countries, and that's why they're so broke. But you don't expect American politicians who are running for Congress to explain that to their constituents when they're running. Oh, no, let's not give them foreign aid. Let's tell them to clean up the corruption, because then they'll say, hey, and while we're doing that, why don't we clean up the corruption in the United States, too?
Well, that would be a great thing, and you listed a couple great examples, taxi medallions, any kind of protectionism that, protects one group of people or one group of jobs, raises the barrier for entry into a market. I mean, those things have got to go, and that happens in other countries. We're quick to point fingers when that happens, but U.S. politicians are not eager to point fingers at themselves. Tom, thanks for the call.
You can't clean up corruption. It's just always going to happen whenever you have positions of power. So the only way to clean it up would be to eliminate the positions of power. But, of course, in order to eliminate the positions of power through the system, people have to get elected, which means they're going to be corrupted. And so they probably won't end up eliminating the positions they were elected to eliminate. So basically it's impossible until people reject the entire idea of the state and enough people begin to ignore it. And then if enough people ignore the state, it will have to wither up and go away, I think.
See, I don't know. I think when it gets before the state withers up and blows away, I think it's going to go out and blow a lot of people away. And I think there are going to need to be people out there shooting back. And so I think it will be recorded as a revolution, because I do not expect them to go softly into that black night. They've had a lot of power for a long time. And the other thing is, I think one of the things that will probably happen when the government falls is we'll get to find out about a lot of the things that they did that we don't even know about.
I don't think you're necessarily – I mean, I don't blame you for believing that the state is going to go out shooting in as violent a manner as possible, and I don't think you're wrong to think that. Mm-hmm. But there may be another way. I mean, they do want to retain their legitimacy, and having shootouts with the people that they were purportedly serving, just years beforehand – is not going to retain their legitimacy. That will eliminate it sooner rather than later, because people will see clearly that they're attacking their own people. I gave an example, I think it was last night on the show, Tuesday night when Derek was here, about how simply by non-cooperating with the courts here in Keene, New Hampshire, we have created a situation where instead of cracking down and busting heads and arresting people for not standing for the judge, because that's what we do. If we're in a courtroom, we don't stand for the judge.
They look at me funny when I do that in Manchester, but they haven't got.
They don't do anything to you there either. Yeah, but here in Keene, it's gotten to the point where the bailiff will not announce. Now, I haven't been in to see this with the new judge, who's female, but with Burke, who was the one that was here forever, all the videos, Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree, all the stuff we've got, it's almost all Burke. Mm-hmm. When he would go into the room toward the end of his career, he's now semi-retired, as long as one of us were in the room, they would not say, "All rise." And the reason why is because they don't want the other people in the room, the normal folks who are there to be victimized by the court, they don't want them to see you sitting down. And so rather than making a big show, and it's smart on their part, rather than making a big show and then getting, busting heads and arresting people and looking even more ridiculous, they did the smart thing and they just let the whole all rise part slide. So that's no longer part of the whole judge coming in the room thing here. So I give that as an example of when people non-cooperate, when they don't respect the state's so-called authority, and all the kind of the trappings of it that go along with it, all this worshipful nonsense.
Right.
The state's reaction in this case, now we've seen them crack down in the past, like in Massachusetts where they tried to intimidate people, but then after they tried that, they realized it didn't work, and they went in the other direction. And in this case, they've gone in the other direction. Instead of using more violence, they've just ignored it.
That's more or less what happened with the 420 rally as well.
Right.
They just stopped coming.
What do you think? Civil disobedience in the courtroom? We think it's a good idea. 855 450. This is Free Talk Live. 855 450 free. That's our toll-free number. We'd love to have you call in and join the show. Let us know what's on your mind. It can be about anything. Politics, it can be about current events, it can be about something I did not just mention. You come up with an idea and we will talk about it, and we'll offer maybe we'll offer our 2 cents for it. But that's not a guarantee either. All we ask is that keep it clean, because hey, we're on real radio. We're on over. Not quite, man. We're always flirting with it. It's right around 200 stations.
We're up to 195 now.
195
but not
stations.
all at the same time. That's over a whole week.
That's right. And if we were to count like some other radio shows go, we would tell you that we're on 17,000, because that's how many have.
We would tell if we just counted the stations we've ever added and never removed.
Right.
We'd have 400.
400. Well, that's still pretty respectable.
It's respectable.
It is respectable.
But the real number is 195.
There we go. So we like real
because we count
numbers.
them when they leave too.
We do
because honesty is important.
Honesty is important to us, and taking your calls is important to us. So we're going to go to Don in Maine, listening on WLOP. Don, you're on
LOB.
Free Talk.
WLOB. They might have gotten it wrong at the board.
Oh, the caller might have. Oh, screener might have.
Yeah.
Don, you're on the air. What's on your mind?
Yes, vaping marijuana. Let me define it first for your audience.
Please.
Heating it to a temperature where it isn't burning.
Okay.
And but yet is evaporating the cannabinoids, the active ingredients. And so my 3-part question to you, and then I have something else.
Wow, 3 parts. Okay.
Have you vaped it?
Yes.
Are there vapor pipes? And if you vaped it, how do you compare it to other forms of intake?
Rich, do you want to start?
I didn't catch the end of the question. How does it compare to what?
Other forms of intake.
Like comparing it to smoking, comparing it to eating.
Ingesting, yeah.
I've never had that great luck with THC pens. I mean, they can be nice, and they certainly taste good, and
THC?
sometimes they're powerful. But
you're talking about just a THC pen, something.
Oh, I'm talking.
Vape pen?
Are you talking about vaping oil or vaping?
I'm talking about putting cannabis in a pipe if they have vapor pipes, heating it till the cannabinoids are evaporated. You can draw them into your lungs.
I haven't used. I don't think I've used that type of vaporizer. I've used the volcanoes. I've used the oil pens.
Well, the Volcano takes ground up product.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think that's important to recognize. And I'm not the master of all these things, but there are many ways to ingest cannabis or THC.
Yes, but I'm mainly interested in vaping it. But
right, but you're interested.
Are there vapor pipes? Are there vapor pipes for marijuana?
So yes, there are different ways to vaporize cannabis. There's the way that you described, which is to say, take the flower, grind it, put it in some sort of a heating chamber, draw hot air past it, basically, and that actually provides you with the vaporization of the THC. That was probably the first way that one could vaporize it. Then technologies sort of come along. They now have these pens that you mentioned, Chris, that have a coil in them. Usually, the coil heats up. You can then put concentrated forms of THC in these devices. You for instance, you can use what they call cannabis wax. which you can put into one of these pipes, and then you press a button, and it heats the coil, which then bubbles up, and boils the wax, and that turns it into vapor. And then there's also the new cannabis oil, newish. I mean, these are new of the last 20 years or whatever. Right. But the cannabis oil is a different delivery, different stored form of THC, and in that case, I don't think they're using a coil. I'm not sure exactly what they use. Some sort of wick. I'm not sure how those oil pen things work.
I think what the quest here. Go ahead.
Can I quickly go to legalization a little bit?
Well, you can, but you hadn't. We hadn't gotten to your third part of your question yet, which is how it compares.
Right.
And I would say it's very comparable in my experience. That using a vaporizer, the old plant-based ones might take a little bit more to get to where you want to be, but it's more efficient as well. You're not burning the plant material, so you're saving your lungs ostensibly in that case, and it can get you just as high, and you don't have all the negative or deleterious effects. But I would say the oils are even more effective because they've got the concentrating effect going down. Instead of just looking at you're vaporizing whatever THC is in the plant, now you can get oils that are up to 90+% THC, and that can be very, very effective, which means less vapor to get the desired effect, especially for medical patients as well.
Okay. Now I want to tell your audience, especially Jennifer. You remember Jennifer called?
I have no idea
and she
who that
was
is.
Against it. She had such a delightful personality. People are suffering from the reefer madness propaganda, and they don't realize that marijuana, actually done right, can actually allow you to immensely improve your intelligence. I'm a PhD in physics. I wrote a dissertation, a PhD dissertation, that I spoke to one of my professors who was Albert Einstein's protege. His name was Peter Bergman. He wrote the first book on Einstein's greatest theory, general relativity. He even generalized it. And I impressed him with my PhD dissertation in physics because I used marijuana to write it. I also
there's a lot of people who've used psychedelics, and marijuana is considered a mild psychedelic. There are a lot of people who've used psychedelics to advance their artwork and their creative capacities. So, I mean, that is certainly not unfamiliar.
Carl Sagan was a big stoner.
Absolutely. And history has been resplendent with people that have done very well while intoxicated. Don, thank you for your call. So
many musicians, of course, have used cannabis and other psychedelic drugs to affect their musical writing or channeling ability or whatever you call that.
Yeah, think about all the music of the 60s and 70s that you love. None of that music would exist without cannabis.
Almost a guarantee.
Exactly. We're going to stay on the phones. Adam in New York. Adam, you're on Free Talk Live, listening to us on YouTube.
Hey, how are you guys? How you guys feeling today?
What's on your mind tonight, Adam?
What's up?
First of all, that was a really great little cannabis and THC vaping segment that you guys just had. That was really good. Second of all, I actually want to touch on two subjects. First off, you guys were talking about government corruption earlier. Sorry. And I think it's wrong to even speak about any of the politicians because, to me, it's obvious that every problem that exists in government is due to almost the entire world working under a private banking industry and the finances. So I would like to know what you guys have to say about that.
We can talk about banks, sure. Hang on.
Yeah, we like that kind of thing.
When we get back.
We
hate banks.
Yeah, when we return, we're going to talk with Adam, and we'll let him know at least what we think of banks. 855-450-FREE. More of your calls when we return. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live has found that though U.S. financial institutions are prohibited from doing business with foreign gambling websites, it's not illegal for U.S.-based internet users to gamble on those sites. People have been using VPNs or virtual private networks to connect to sites like games.bitcoin.com and play games with Bitcoin Cash. Games.bitcoin.com features poker, blackjack, roulette, craps, keno, slots, and dice. You can conduct your own investigation at games.bitcoin.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's how you get in touch with us. That's one way to get in touch with us. There's lots of ways to get in touch with us here on the show. You can hit us up on Discord at discord.lrn.fm. That will, you load a little bit of software, you use your high-speed internet connection, and you will sound like you are in the studio with us. But there's other places to talk to us. You can hit us up on the Telegram channel at telegram.freetalklive.com. You can go to Mastodon and hit us up at toot.freetalklive.com. And I was going to say Twitch, but we're not on Twitch. We've been temporarily suspended, we believe, for something. But there's all sorts of things. Another thing you can do is you can hit us up at shop.freetalklive.com if you're interested in saving some money and supporting the show. So we've got links to Walmart. We've got links, international links, I think, to Amazon still. Are there?
Yeah, there's like a Canadian.
Like if you were a Canadian, you could go there and order
Amazon
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. But all that money supports the show, and we appreciate it. It helps us get on more radio stations. Another thing we do is our amplifier program. AMP stands for Advertise, Market, and Promote. And tonight we would like to thank Tyler C. He is a silver amplifier, which means he has pledged to provide the show with $5 a month. And that money, like I said, goes directly to advertising, marketing, and promoting the show. And we like that because, not because we get any money out of it, we don't. This money is going just to getting us on more radio stations and spreading the message of liberty. So that's amp.freetalklive.com. And we were talking to Adam in New York, who had some questions about how we felt about banks. We thought we would talk to him and see where this goes. Adam, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead with your thoughts.
Well, I think he'd asked a question.
Oh, that's, yes.
Well,
you just asked for, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. So basically, my concern is that due to us being ran mostly in the world by private banks, being as that they're private banks, and just for some rundown, the Federal Reserve System is a private bank where all of our money comes from.
It is.
If they're charging us interest every single time we need money for the slightest thing, then how in the world are we ever going to get out of debt? Not only is it unlikely, but it's literally impossible, because for every dollar that's printed, we're going to have to pay it back plus interest. So we're basically
it's impossible.
Yeah, bringing out our own money.
Yes.
Yep.
So
you're absolutely.
Why don't we?
The system is working as designed.
That's backed by gold and silver. Why don't we make a currency that's backed by gold and silver, so that we can limit the amount that we can make, and it just doesn't turn into worthless paper?
Well, the good news is there already are other currencies. Some of them are backed by gold and silver. Some of them are gold and silver. Right. So when you say why don't we make? What do you mean? I mean, like when you say we.
I mean, why don't we as a nation make that our main currency?
Oh, you mean the You mean the government when you say we as a nation?
See, I agree with you that we as a nation should use currencies other than the dollar, except I don't invite the government to that game. Right. I think the government should keep right on using the dollar, and as Americans trade dollars for other things, and I recommend doing this because I think there's a great inflation coming. There are rumblings. Russia is buying gold. China is buying gold. All over the world, they're buying gold. I'm hearing about smuggling of gold out of Africa. Everybody's getting gold fever, and why is that? Because gold is the bedrock on which the economy will land when not only the dollar, but every fiat currency in the world is going to blow up, and probably at the same time, because they're all pyramided on top of the dollar. These people are using dollars for reserves.
Yes.
Okay, so when the bottom falls out of the dollar, they dump the reserves trying to get anything else in the world, and there's going to be hyperinflation. So what I say is short the dollar. buy silver, buy Bitcoin, buy Bitcoin Cash, and I'm saying this as a minister, not a financial advisor, buy Bitcoin Cash, buy Monero, buy drugs, buy guns, buy bullets, buy anything that's real, because this money is fake and it's all going to come down around on our heads. That's my advice with respect to banking.
Well, first, also, guys, just right after this, I just want to touch on one more quick subject. But just for the banking stuff, I think we just have to get rid. If you get rid of the Federal Reserve System, you will get rid of 90% of this country's problems. Because what's happening is that these private bankers are paying off politicians, and paying off media, and paying off everybody that they can to fulfill their agenda. And we have to have a government that prints its own money. Our money does not come from our government.
Right.
That's a huge problem.
And I don't want money
I don't want the
from
money
my
to
government.
come from the government either.
What I want for money,
Adam, thanks for your call.
Apart from Bitcoin, is I want metal coins that I can carry in my pocket. You know, you can carry a lot of value that way. An ounce of gold is worth $1,600, and if gold was in common, I think that's about it now. I haven't looked lately. Maybe it's 1,200, but
the point being, it has value, and if you print something that is not backed by anything, then it's not even a warehouse receipt. That's how money, one of its first roles
and
was.
That's what money is supposed to be, is a warehouse receipt for gold or a warehouse receipt for silver. Hell, even a warehouse receipt for grain would be, could be used as money. But this idea that people say, what's Bitcoin backed with? It's not backed with anything. Well, the dollar isn't backed with anything.
Bitcoin is backed by labor, and it provides proof of work.
It provides a service and is in some way that I don't think has really been sufficiently looked into. It's backed by the service.
It's backed by proof of work and its security. So there is a whole there's a whole world of thought out there about how cryptocurrencies are backed by something tangible, and that's not just Bitcoin, but a lot of them posit that, and I think that holds more validity than being backed by the faith and credit of the United States. You know what I mean? You can see what's gone into something, and if thousands of kilowatts have gone into the production of a Bitcoin, then that's no different than saying thousands of man hours have gone into extracting this type of ore from the ground. So there is certainly something to be said there. All right, we're going to try to go back to
John Maynard Keynes. One more word on that. John Maynard Keynes was quoting Lenin, and he said, Lenin was right. The surest way to overturn a capitalist order of society is to debauch the currency. This brings all of the hidden forces of economics into play on the side of destruction in a way that not one man in a million can diagnose.
Nicely said. We're going to go to the Discord where we've got Bad Slave. Bad Slave, thank you for being patient. You're on Free Talk Live. Are you there?
I am nothing but patient, that's for sure.
You are. So what's on your mind?
Anyway,
Thank you. I needed that.
I want to get back to Charlottesville and the whack job that drove a car into a fairly crowded street between some other cars. And I saw the video, and what had occurred, and maybe it wouldn't have come off the way it did if the car wasn't attacked. I mean, as soon as the car pulled in to that space, now he may have been deliberately doing something to harm people. I don't know, but there's a possibility he wasn't. And that when the pedestrians surrounded his car and started beating on it, I mean, you don't.
We'll be right back. More with Free Talk.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. We've been kind of all over the board. We talked a little bit about trade and how that has not gone the way our government had hoped it would go. In other words, if you have a trade war, don't count on a quick and easy victory. Mr. Trump has found that out the hard way, and sadly, so have the American people. We've had calls that wanted to talk about vaping. We've had calls that talked about a variety of things, including our corrupt banking system. In studio tonight, we have Ian and Rich and myself, Chris, and we are going to go back to Bad Slave, who has been waiting patiently. Bad Slave, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. And you wanted to talk about Charlottesville.
Yeah, well, just about the guy in the car. He was a dick, and but I think he may not have reacted that way if his car wasn't attacked.
So you're referring to the driver of the car who pulled into the crowd of lots of people. What I saw was, first of all, it was sort of the video shot that I saw was this car. It looked like it was kind of coming downhill towards the crowd. It wasn't going really fast. And right. As it pulled into the crowd, it was surrounded by more and more people because there was a big crowd in Charlottesville.
Right. And I mean, they gathered in right behind him. And I think he was trapped from traffic in front of him. And he was afraid, and he put it in reverse, and a lot of people got hurt. And I mean, I don't know if that they ever did an autopsy on that woman and what actually she died from. But
so
my guess is that she didn't have a strong heart, and probably shouldn't even have been there in the middle of all of that.
I don't know how you could allege that. She was a very young woman, so I would assume she's probably
overweight. She was overweight, and she was, I don't think, a particularly healthy person from what I heard. Now, I don't know. I'm speculating on that, so I'm not going to, hold that strongly.
I don't have the video pulled up here in front of me, but I thought the man was moving forward towards the crowd, and you seem to be saying that he was trapped and then backed up and then backed over her.
I don't know what happened with her directly. There was some, people that said that she wasn't even hit by the car, but I don't know exactly what happened. I didn't see all the details of that. I mean, you don't get to see that.
Right. But
she wasn't, I don't think she was, there were a bunch of Black Lives Matter people that were behind the car.
But what does that have to do with the fact that this woman ended up getting run over somehow by a car? Is there a question as to whether
he's saying that they were behind the car and that they were harassing?
What I'm saying is this sounds like you're trying to cast some doubt on whether this actually happened in the first place, and even if it did, then perhaps it wasn't the drivers of the car's fault, that he felt he was, to use a law enforcement term, he was scared for his life. So the only way out of it was to run over a human being.
Yeah, look, Bad Slave, you're talking about something that happened a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago at this point. We heard this claim from Chris Cantwell, who called the show on a few occasions to try to defend the person who was driving this car.
I don't want to defend him at all, but
okay, well, I'm just saying that's the official line from what you're doing is you're delivering the official line from the Nazis here, and I just want to let you know that there is another side to the story, and that is okay. I know what you're trying to say. Just hold on, okay? So you're delivering the official line from the Nazi side, and that's their position. Now, prosecutors pointed out, and that's, by the way, what his attorney said, according to NBCnews.com in court, that Fields is the man's name. that he feared for his safety and was remorseful that people had been injured, but prosecutors argued Fields was angry that day over the fighting that had taken place between the two sides, pointing out that Fields twice posted on Instagram before the rally an image of a group of people getting struck by a car. This case is about his decision. This case is about his decision to act on that anger. Prosecutors also played surveillance video showing Fields driving his car slowly toward the group, reversing and then speeding into them. So if there were on that video evidence of people attacking his car, then certainly the prosecutors wouldn't have played that. Right? So I don't know if I buy the claim that he was under attack. He was there for a reason.
This is how I recall the video, and unfortunately I'm working from memory, but we all are. What I remember is the car starting to pull into the crowd. People did start to beat on the windows and things that would make me want to move my car very badly, but he then backs up out of that situation, but then he reverses and drives back through the people.
He went there in the first place.
That did not strike me as defense. It struck me as revenge.
You're saying that he went forward again?
Yeah,
that's what I'm remembering from watching the video, but I can't see it. I may have it wrong.
It says it here. They played surveillance video showing Fields driving his car slowly towards the group of people, then reversing and then speeding into the group.
Yeah.
So and then you got
what they leave out though is there were people surrounding the car and beating on the windows before he reversed.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Not mentioning
he drove
that.
a car directly into a group of protesters that he didn't like, and they didn't like him. I mean, he was there to start something.
Yeah. That I don't know, but either way, when he threw his car back in drive instead of keeping it in reverse, that's when I think he went wrong, because that's not defense, that's revenge.
Yeah, I think so too. Bad Slave, thanks for the call.
When Fields' mother said Bro is Susan Bro, the mother of the lady that died, Heather Heyer. When Fields' mother said Bro had lost her daughter, Fields is heard saying that it, quote, doesn't matter in a taped phone call from jail between Fields and his mother, which was also played for the court, because when you're in jail, folks, they're likely recording your calls. Fields is heard lashing out at her mother, Susan, calling her a communist, an anti-white supremacist who was trying to slander him. He says it doesn't matter that she'd lost her daughter and called Bro, her mother, the enemy, prior to heading to the rally. So this is not a man who is sorry for what he did.
I think the question of hate, I think everybody can recognize that there's a lot of hate in that crowd. And a lot of that, in my mind, was coming from the alleged white supremacists, the Nazis, the Chris Cantwells. They were projecting some hate, and I think they brought that. I think the left was not behaving well either. And I think that, if you're going to...
No doubt.
They made a bad situation worse. And the upshot of this is a woman died, and that's tragedy. If she's left, if she's right, if she's in the middle, I don't care. I just was really saddened to see a loss of human life over nothing, over stupid stuff, over stupid people saying stupid things, and stupid people reacting in a stupid way. So,
yeah, and the sad thing is that's what's been taught. Both the stupidity, America has been dumbed down, and also, I mean, if you think about the number of people who get their moral education from Hollywood movies,
right,
that's frightening.
Yeah. If this is Grand Theft Auto and this is what you do, this is how I get points. I'm not going to sit here and say that, he's a result of video games and things like that.
No, I'm not saying video games. I'm just saying an ethic that strikes, that's throughout our civilization, that violence is, a heroic thing to do.
Right. And there was nothing heroic about that whole thing.
Before the fatal crash, Fields was photographed, by the way. He's from Ohio, so it's not like he's just some guy who happened to be driving through a street, in Charlottesville. He was photographed holding a shield with the Vanguard America emblem one of the hate groups that participated in the rally. The group later denied he was associated with them.
I'm sure.
So he was there for a reason.
Yeah. You don't just hop in the car in Illinois and cruise to Charlottesville. Yeah, it's sad, and that's the shame of this.
And then him posting pictures on Instagram of a car running into people right before he went and did this thing. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Well, there's more coming up here. Hour 3's next. It's free.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with AgristHosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to AgristHosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's AgristHosting.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That is our number. And we'd like to have you join us. Give us a call. Let us know what's on your mind. What is in the news, maybe that you find interesting. If you want to get our take on it, feel free to give us a call. But one story that, and we do, and I should say the we in studios, myself, Chris.
I'm Ian.
And I'm Rich Paul.
We do bring in stories, and we think of them as conversation starters. Ian brought in one which I thought was pretty interesting, and it's this concept of how do we see wealth? You know, how do we judge success? And millennials may have a different take on some of those questions than the rest of us.
Yeah, they do, according to a recent report by Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. This, by the way, the story coming from BusinessInsider.com, which I believe one of our chatters on the Discord posted in our news show prep chat room, which is super useful for me to get show prep. So thank you to everybody that posted in there. According to this report, some people might equate financial success with how rich they are. I think we were all raised to the idea that, if you make over a certain amount of money, then you're considered rich, and that's success, right? Like, you've made it.
He who wins with the most toys wins.
But that's not the case with most millennials and Gen Z. According to a report which surveyed more than 2,700 Americans between ages 18 and 34, only 19% of respondents defined financial success as being rich. 60% of the respondents. Do you want to guess on what the 60% of millennials and Gen Z, how they define financial success?
Eating Tide Pods?
That's a good one.
That wasn't fair.
Dank memes.
Having dank memes? Having a large collection of them?
Large collection of dank memes.
That's a good guess, but no, that wasn't it.
That wasn't it.
They defined financial success as simply being debt-free.
Wow.
That's what I said.
Jinx.
Yeah, we said that in unison. So that's interesting.
In stereo, we're available.
Following the baby boomers, my generation, who pretty much, that's all that we've been taught. Thank you, Federal Reserve System. Debt's okay. Debt's good. But they're actually waking up and seeing this. This is good. This is a good sign in my mind.
Yeah. Well, it is and it isn't, because, the difference between the thinking of poor people and the thinking of rich people in general is that poor people think about how am I going to get through the month, and rich people think about having a little bit more at the end of the month than they had at the beginning of the month, And if you have a habit of building up assets, then, you won't be poor forever, even if you start out that way, if you manage them well. So it does concern me, and it's because of this ridiculous government-pushed student loan program. This was a government project.
That comes up in the story.
Like all government projects, was a disaster. Okay, let's proceed
continue.
back.
Yeah, I don't know if I think this is good news at all. I mean, to me, this sounds like, as they describe it here, a low bar of accomplishment. Because ultimately, we're all born without debt. Right? Like, that's sort of the natural
No, actually,
state.
we're born with about $90,000 of the national debt piled on our shoulders. It's not my debt, but they intend to take it out of your behind.
Oh, yeah. And in the meantime, you are collateral.
Yeah.
You are the collateral on those loans.
Your debt.
Well, I don't know. How are you the collateral? Can they come and repossess somebody? Like, are they like, okay, you didn't... USA, you didn't send us the money, you have to send us Reitner? What does that mean, to be the collateral? I've never understood that.
That's me quoting memes, but that's sort of what it is.
Okay, yeah, memes aren't always true.
Of course not. And
I strongly doubt that they're going to come start collecting people, so I call BS on that.
Fair enough. But the idea that, if we are...
I think the idea is you work to pay off that.
Yeah.
We do, and certainly, I mean, in a way, the thing is, what we are is we're the slaves who are tasked with collecting that debt for the government.
Human resources.
Yeah. You have to produce it. And if you're not producing,
you
then...
don't. I mean, ultimately, you could go to some other plantation and, not have the government of the United States debt placed upon you.
I'll tell you
what.
what.
A different plantation you like better?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I've got a brewer friend who's talking about moving down to Costa Rica, and he makes it sound very beautiful.
It's very beautiful from what I hear.
He says the women down there don't hate men. And, it's like, oh my God, it's paradise, nice. And it's warm too.
But what are the taxes like? I mean, that's a question. So, yeah, I kind of see their point of a low bar. But to me, I look at this as refreshing because I see so many people in my generation that just assume that debt is part of life, and it's okay because even if I do that, I can still get a home equity loan, and I can still push this, and I can still get all the stuff I want. I guess maybe I'm looking for I'd be happy with some level of societal change.
Of course, then again, if there are any millennials out there who think I'm cute, I'm only $900 short of success.
According to the report, 81% of early adult households carry a collective debt of nearly $2 trillion. The debt includes car loans and mortgages, but is made up of student loan debt mainly and credit card debt. Those who carry the latter have an average balance of $3,700, and more than half say they're struggling to pay it off. Meanwhile, college tuition has more than doubled since the 1980s, and as a result, student loan debt has reached record levels. The national student debt total is more than $1.5 trillion.
It bears comment that tuitions have doubled. Why have the tuitions doubled? Well, I'll tell you what, if I was running a business and the government announced that they were going to lend the citizens money that could only be spent in my industry, what am I going to do? I'm going to raise my prices.
Of course.
Okay.
Because everyone else is.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And the other thing that happens, and this is a sign of an artificial boom, is you saw, or just recently over the last few decades, we've seen a bunch of very fly-by-night schools, that seem to be going through the motions of being a school, but not really being a school.
Okay.
And that's another thing that you find is when the government forces money into an industry, okay, the people who are talented and naturally drawn to that industry are used up before the money is spent, so then the leftover money attracts the opportunists, okay? And the opportunities come in, the opportunists come in like vultures. They have no vocation for what they're doing, but they know there's a pile of money and they're going to suck it up as best they can. And that's what they do, and they're really good at it.
But can you blame them? I put no...
Can I blame them?
I blame the government completely on this.
See, I blame the government, but I also blame the people who haven't, done something about it. And of course, obviously, I'm one of those people that, I've tried to do things about it, but sooner or later, you have to make them stop.
But how do you do that? If the government is sitting here saying, I will loan you any amount of money for your, fill in the blank ridiculous degree, that's your problem. Then you're going to have people who will get ridiculous degrees.
The answer to me is there are a lot of people in this country who love this kind of foolishness and who have been taught by the government schools that government will solve all of their problems, and they cannot be dissuaded from this idiotic nonsense. And so what I think we need to do is break up the country, between different kinds of people, 50-state secession, somebody can keep the remaining shreds of the federal government and let some states become liberal and let some states be Democrat and let New Hampshire be the libertarian paradise that will show them all how to make your people rich.
What do you think? What do you think about millennials' biggest goal in life is to live without debt? Where is this coming from, and where are we going? 855-450-FREE. I find it baffling, but I find it interesting to talk about. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-3733. That's 855-450-FREE. Free is in free lunch. Nah, we know how economics work, so there are no free lunches. And I hate to break it to the millennials, and Ian, I'm happy you pointed this out to me, that my joy that they actually realize now that being without debt is a good thing. It's pretty sad because that seems to be the only bar they're attempting to achieve. That's kind of sad.
Well, I don't want to take it away from somebody who has managed to get out of debt, because that is an accomplishment.
It is an accomplishment, but the thing is, that's being on the return route from a bad place.
Right.
It's
That's
like
not
if you
success.
stop drugs and you don't change anything else in your life, you're going to stay at that barely surviving level until you actually start doing stuff. And
you've gotten back to zero.
You've paid off your debt.
Congratulations.
That means you have surplus. You have two choices. You can consume it or you can save it. If you save it and you put it in an index fund, or you put it in silver or gold or something that will at least retain and expand its value, then you're going to have a much happier life later on.
Yeah, but it is tough to get to that point, and
it is.
Student debt is the worst. I mean, because the numbers are so high.
And because it's not dischargeable by bankruptcy. Who came up with that idea? I'd like to look at the legislative history of that law and find out.
We met a guy, I'm not going to say who he is because I think he kind of wants to keep that quiet, but he is a libertarian who moved to New Hampshire. He is living here in the Keene area, and he's a school teacher.
Okay.
And the thing that he teaches is like officially a computer class, but he uses his opportunity to have high schoolers in front of him that are interested in what he has to say, presumably, to talk to them about finance, to talk to them about like the basics of how credit cards work and how loans work. And the things they do not teach you generally in a government school. You do not learn anything about debt.
No.
Right.
And
not even how to balance a checkbook. I didn't get anything like that.
Not anymore. I got the basics.
I think they might have given us balancing a checkbook in high school, but it wasn't more than that. And
I know our home economics, which used to be about things like that, is now about how to cook and how to sew.
Yeah. Right. So my point is, these young people are thrown into a world where debt is all over the place. Opportunities to acquire debt, not just school debt. That's the one they're pushed into probably the hardest. But as soon as they turn 18 or whatever, they're getting hit up by credit cards.
Yeah.
And a bunch of them probably think it's free money.
It is. I don't want to say that all debt is predatory.
Not all debt is predatory.
No, but sales is by definition a predatory action. I'm going to try to offer something.
Well,
let me go where I'm going.
I want to hear this. Yeah.
Yeah. What I'm saying is that I need to convince you as a salesman that my solution is more important than the money that you already have. And that that has me as a salesperson want something you have.
That depends on what kind of a salesperson you are.
No,
if you're a one-trick pony, you're right. But if you carry a number of lines, the job of a salesman should be to help a motivated customer to figure out which of his products would best meet their need.
Right, and that may be mine.
Or if he's honest, send them on their way.
And that's the kind of sales I certainly practice. But the point is you are encouraging a behavior, and in the case of sales and credit cards and debt is sales, okay, do you believe that every salesman has the same ethics that I do?
No,
I don't. And I don't think every credit card company possesses any ethics at all.
Okay, but it's not fair to say sales is predatory.
Because that's saying that all sales is predatory.
Right. Okay,
it's
I'm not saying all sales is predatory.
Suggests somebody is larger than something else, taking advantage of another person, victimizing another person. And as you pointed out, sales is generally about showing somebody, hey, you didn't know you needed this, but here's why you need it. And then they feel like they need it for whatever reason, and whether they're right or not is another question.
Let me rephrase.
Do you remember
it introduces the opportunity for predatory action.
Do you remember the Ferengi from Star Trek The Next Generation?
I didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it? Okay, you remember them. Okay, the thing about the Ferengi is the Ferengi are the universe's worst capitalists. They are not the epitome of capitalism. They're always flying around in Dallasy, ripping people off, and nobody trusts them. Nobody wants to do trade with them, which is exactly what would happen, which makes them the world's worst capitalists. Not to mention they couldn't move without permission from their negus. They had to get licenses for everything they did. They were socialists. The Ferengi were frigging socialists.
There you go.
So let's see here. I got more, but who's
we've got Sarah. Let's go talk to Sarah. Sarah from New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
How you doing tonight, comrade?
Yes. I just wanted to say that I want to talk to Ian.
Okay.
I called in about the same thing last night.
You
but
did?
I want to talk
I'm
to
shocked.
Ian, So.
Oh, I wasn't here last night. Okay, what was it?
Okay, that's why I wanted to break the news that Walgreens, starting next year, will only start selling cigarettes to 21 years old or older.
Okay.
Now this is like a chain.
Right.
This is a chain-wide decision that they're making for the entire business of Walgreens.
Well, I was told that it's a penalty, a federal penalty, because they were busted for selling to under 18 over and over again. So instead of paying the big fine, they're only allowed to sell to 21 years or older.
So it still sounds like a store policy or corporate policy.
Yeah, I mean, it's a store policy that they adopted to get out of trouble, but, it is a store policy they adopted. I say, that they're within their rights. I don't sell cigarettes at all, so I can't say you have a responsibility to sell cigarettes to people.
Well, the thing about it is that, they were forced into it instead of, choosing to, but they still sell cigarette products.
Yeah,
but
that's the thing, and it shouldn't be a crime. I don't think to sell cigarettes to people under 18. I think people under 18 have a right to make their own decisions, even if you don't agree with them.
Yep. And here is that story. Walgreens raises minimum tobacco sales age 21 after FDA pressure. So they were pressured into doing this. Walgreens stores will no longer sell tobacco products to anyone under the age of 21 starting September 1. Walgreens Boots Alliance announced Tuesday. Boots is the UK division of the company. Legal age to buy tobacco in both countries is currently 18, but the efforts to raise the limit is underway, particularly in the UK, and the All-Parliamentary Group on Smoking and Health recently called for a change.
Yeah, I'm not sure how this is going to do anything whatsoever to reduce Walgreens' selling illegally to people under the age.
Yeah, and apparently here
they'll probably
affects...
just extend it to, if they're going to sell to you under 18, they're going to sell to you under 21.
Mm-hmm. Sarah, we're going to bring you back because we enjoy talking to you. Hold on, and we'll get back to you here, but... What do you think? You're old enough to go to war, you're old enough to die in battle, but you're not old enough for a cigarette. Is that what you think? When we return, 855-450-FREE, give us a call. This is Free Talk Live.
You love Bitcoin. It's the future, right? Well, no, not if everyone stops using it. I mean, think about it. How many places in your town take Bitcoin? One? None? Let's be real. If this Bitcoin thing is ever going to happen, it's going to need your help. The good news is the guys at AnyPay have your back. We built a website called helpmetakebitcoin.com, and it's a place you can send any business, and they'll be set up to take Bitcoin in 5 minutes. helpmetakebitcoin.com.
This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-FREE. That's 855-450-3733. If you would like to join our conversation, we've been all over the map as we are off to do. But we've been talking about the age to buy tobacco because apparently, at least for the federal government, and I'm not sure what pressure the FDA has been putting on Walgreens and exactly how this all plays out, but it's basically been applying pressure to increase the age that they are selling to people from 18 to 21, and I think this seems to be as some sort of a deal with the government to stay out of hot water. That sounds like what it is to me, and unfortunately, companies have to go along with it, or they're going to lose the opportunity to be in marketplaces.
Hey, Chris, did we talk about Edge Wallet?
We didn't, but I'd like to tell you about Edge Wallet.
Yeah.
But Ian, I do know you know about it.
Oh, I'm a big
Edge
fan.
Wallet is a great cryptocurrency wallet, and what I like about it is it supports lots and lots and lots of different cryptocurrencies. There's an iOS version, an Android version, so if you've got an iPhone or you got an Android device or a Samsung device, it's going to work for you there. It allows you to buy, sell, trade, and securely hold cryptocurrencies and just send, value from you to somebody else or to buy things or anything else. It's user-controlled, so you own your own money. There is support built in for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, various Ethereum tokens, Monero, Ripple, Stellar, and many, many more. This is a veteran team who's been building since 2014, and their tagline is Secure Your Freedom. You can find out more at edge.app. That's edge.app. But, I don't know.
I use it more than any other wallet, and I did that before they sponsored the show.
You did.
Yeah.
You were loyal, and
I'm not loyal.
No,
you're
I'm
not loyal. I will use
and,
whatever works best.
Right, and I like the fact that it seems like those of us in crypto are quick to drop anything that we're suspicious of. If it's not working right or if it's got issues, we quit promoting it.
In Edge's case, we've had the pleasure of meeting those guys out at different crypto conventions over years and interviewing Paul Play, who's their CEO. So it's nice to know, the creators of your wallet. It's nice because if you know them, then they're going to take your reports more seriously or whatever. So
Sure.
I have reported some bugs, certainly to Edge, because I do care to see wallets get better. I've reported bugs to Koinomi as well.
Yeah.
I want to see people have a better experience generally, and I'm glad we have different wallets out there competing to make that the whole process easier for the users. Because that's what people need. It needs to be as easy and as foolproof as possible. And Edge is pretty darn good.
Yeah, they've done a good design, and like I said, Ian, you and I have spoke about problems I've had with Edge Wallet, and it took me some amount of time to get it. I would say for them to get it to where I felt it wanted to be, but it's one that I recommend now.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
So that's good. We're going to go back to the phones where we've got Sarah. She wants to talk about the age to buy tobacco, and she seems to be jubilant, evidently, that Walgreens is going to increase the age that they're going to sell to 21. Sarah, you're back on Free Talk Live.
Well, yeah, my whole point is that it's one step closer to having the age be 21 at the federal level. It's going to come faster than what I expected.
Could we increase the age to go to war to 21 too, as just a start?
Yeah, would that be okay?
Quit drafting.
How about if we don't let the police murder unarmed black people until they're 21?
That's good.
That would be good. We'll set a minimum age. If they're not 21, you have to throw them back.
What do you?
At the federal.
I mean, that would save a lot more lives.
Good point.
Under 21 than changing whether or not they smoke, right?
Does that count for if police are going to shoot a dog? Do they have to calculate the dog's age in dog years to determine whether the dog is 18 years old before
yes,
they kill
I think
it?
a 3-year-old dog would be fair game. But
in dog years
no
or
younger
human
than
years?
that. 3 human years, so that would be like 21 dog years.
So again, Sarah,
but the Walgreen, it's going to be a thing that people will get accustomed to. And Walgreen is a national chain. How many stores they have?
A lot. They do.
Well, it is true that there is a process by which you can, as you slowly but surely take away people's options, they do kind of get used to it, and they forget that they used to be free. They don't feel the sting of their life and their world getting smaller and smaller. It's like boiling a frog, But that's the thing is, once the frog realizes what you're doing to it, or once the socialist slave realizes what you're doing to him,
it's too late. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, you know what? That's my whole point of this, is that we're going to get the federal age 20 to 21 like next year or maybe 3 years, like really fast, because people are going to be accepting of the Walgreens selling at 21.
What about all the... Sarah,
well, that's just fine, because that'll just create a black market opportunity. That will create a whole core of entrepreneurs who make their money by buying cigarettes and selling them to young people. So good job. Think of it as a jobs program for youth.
How about that?
Well, I believe in small increments.
See, you idiots always think that you can solve these things.
Sarah wants you to die if you sell cigarettes illegally. If you sell Lucy's on the streets, she supports you being choked to death by the police.
Oh, really?
She said that. She said that on the air.
You okay with that, Sarah?
See, that's interesting. Have you ever been diagnosed a psychopath?
I don't even know why
Sarah?
we have Sarah on the line. We haven't given her a chance to actually answer anything.
I know. I keep trying. Sarah, your thoughts. Are you okay with killing people for selling loose cigarettes?
Well, what I wanted to say was that you know what? I mean, that's what he deserves.
There you go.
Cigarette smoke and
he deserved it.
People, they die from
what she said.
What do you expect?
Thanks for the call, Sarah.
Thanks a lot.
What else can you say to somebody like that? Sick.
I think that's actually AOC calling in. I do. I think that's that's AOC. I recognize the accent.
I don't even think AOC would support that man being choked to death, because at least AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, at least she seems to have some sort of favoring the sentencing reform and ending the war on drugs. And
okay,
she's right on those issues.
Now, I'm going to throw this out there, and please check me on this. But I watched a very compelling video that alleges that there is not an original thought that comes out of AOC's mouth. Period. That there's a group of people behind her who. I can't remember the name of the organization, but they're well known.
She's a puppet? You're saying she's a...
Absolutely.
Well, she certainly sounds like her speaking, or like her thinking is done by committee.
It does, and it's really interesting. So there is a Democratic Socialist organization that has been actively looking for people to prop up and to get into these positions. And if you start to listen to what she says, she's like, I can't believe this. I'm in Congress after... 4 months ago, I was a bartender.
Yeah, well, she's a performer,
and that's
she
their
went
point.
To,
that's the point
of
this video.
Yeah, and that does seem to be a new thing, and I think the first instance of that was Barack Obama.
Yeah,
I think he was largely a performer,
playing
in
the
a
role
lot
of
ways.
president.
Yeah, and Donald Trump. I don't know. My jury is still out on him. On the one hand, the media reacts to him exactly the way I imagine they would have responded to Ron Paul, which makes me think that maybe he is truly an enemy of the establishment. But then I look at what he does, and it's like all establishment all the time.
By the way, interesting detail at the very bottom of the story about the Walgreens. They have a card all policy that they started in October that requires verification of all sales of tobacco regardless of age.
Wow. Well, I won't be...
Yeah. You're going to get carded.
I'm going to get carded. I usually take that as a compliment. 855, 450 free in our final segments. This is Free Talk Live. This is Free Talk Live, 855-450-free. You call in right now, you might get in. This is our final segment, but we'll see how you do. But we do have, we've had an interesting evening. I guess that's the best way to put it. And I'm sorry, Sarah, but I just can't support killing people for selling loose cigarettes. Sarah, one of our callers, is very much in favor of enforcing laws about tobacco.
Well, she seems to be really into controlling other people's behavior in general.
Well, she knows what's best.
Yes. This is true.
She knows what best. She knows every risk-reward trade-off that everybody else should make.
Exactly.
Based on what's important to her.
Yes.
Because who else's values could matter?
We're going to go to the Discord where I believe we have Free Market Penguins. It's Penguin, Maine. Penguin, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Yeah, you got it right. It's me.
First
of all, I want to say, Rich, that is an awesome shirt. I love that. I'm loving that shirt.
They call it a drug rug.
Actually, this isn't technically a drug rug.
What is that?
This is technically a hoodie.
Just a hoodie. Oh, okay.
But thank you. Yeah, this came from a music festival that's near to my heart called Wormtown down in Massachusetts, and I'll be there this fall.
Cool. Well, yeah, I was going to call about the Twitch thing, and I kind of got off on something else since I waited so long to call. Basically, what I wanted to say is kind of a criticism of some people kind of in the right-wing anarchist libertarian camps. They kind of take this view that their approach to liberty is kind of like they approach it from a conservative or reactionary perspective.
Okay. Where
it seems like there's this idea that we can go back to a previous time or era, that this mythology that's created where there was, freedom and markets and autarky. And the myth is kind of that we didn't come from feudalism and despotism. And I've really had, honestly, Mark Edge has really put it great that like people have for thousands of years, had this kind of they have been ruled by a certain class of people or rulers, kings, dictators, and no matter where you stand on specific issues, if you believe in liberty, we're generally progressing towards something which is an idea, and maybe it's a long time before we achieve something close to total liberty. Maybe it's a utopia that we're constantly striving towards, but it's definitely something that I think we're progressing to. It's not something that has really existed that we have lost.
I don't think, I mean, it's kind of like the Make America Great Again argument. Was America ever great? Well, in some ways, America used to be much worse than it is now, and in some ways it used to be much better. I mean, I would love to have the economic freedom that existed before the establishment of the Federal Reserve. But then there were a lot of very bad things going on then,
but even
too.
when we
if you
say
look at the
something
way
like
minorities were treated, that sucked. So
right, but
I
we
can't say
that.
that's when America was great.
But when were we not manipulated? We had that sort of sweet spot following the Civil War.
From 1776 to 1789.
Okay, you could say that. I could look
Declaration of Independence to the establishment of the Constitution. And the reason I say that is because the only time you're truly free is when you're at war with your government, because then you know that they don't own you.
Right. But in terms of economics, what people talk about, people like to talk about, the glowing era before the Federal Reserve, and that's when things were really good. Well, no, they weren't. We had a national bank in this country as soon as the Revolutionary War ended, as soon as the War of 1812, another
first
one.
American bank, or the first national bank, though, was quickly repealed. The second national bank was repealed by Andrew Jackson.
It took 20.
So we had nothing.
Their charters ran out after 20 years. You add up the first national bank, the second national bank, and the third national bank. You've got 60 years out of a country that's about 70 or 80 years old. You were under a national bank.
The third national bank is the Federal Reserve.
No.
So you only had the two.
No, you had
what about
a third.
the one during Lincoln?
Exactly. You had the age of the greenbacks.
Wait a minute. The greenbacks were printed by Treasury. Greenbacks were inflationary, but they were printed by Treasury. There was no central bank involved. Now, that's better. From an economist point of view, if I was a minarchist economist, I would say, well, the first thing you do is you get rid of the Federal Reserve, okay? And when you need money, the government prints the money and just spends it on the things that government already spends money on.
You're so good at that, Dick.
Yeah. But the thing is, at least then you're not paying interest to a third party who doesn't have what's valuable in this transaction. What's valuable in this transaction is the ability to print a license to print money. And only the government has that.
The issue is while we speak in these glowing terms, and I say a lot of people do, they look back fondly, and to Free Market Penguin's point, they look back fondly at this time, before the Federal Reserve came along. But what I'm saying is you've got 60, 70 years where we were in de facto central banking, and then we did things that were central bank-like.
But 20 years doesn't even have time to really corrupt the system. It's taken us 100 years for our economy to get this sick.
Right, but I'm saying is this mythical period where we had a free market in this country, or even if we
never had a free market, but we had a comparatively free market. Nothing is black and white in this world.
I disagree on that. I disagree that we ever had a free market in banking.
The only black and white things are black things and white things, and there's also yellow things and red things. And
Free Market Penguin, please.
Yeah, I mean, you raise a good point. So that's a good like a venue where there is an argument for that. There was a time, and you can argue it in different ways, that when you talk about the central banking and the Federal Reserve, and that's a really important topic. But I was more speaking in general, and that's a really good example where that is kind of a good argument. But in general, we haven't, when it comes to human freedom and really free markets and people having a level of personal sovereignty over themselves, and I'm not an advocate of libertarianism for its own sake. I mean, I believe that people should be individually making market decisions is a better way to run a society.
Mm-hmm. I enjoy libertarianism, but I don't expect anybody else to join me in it.
Yeah, but I mean, not for its own. I don't support it for its own sake, but the idea that people are making their own market decisions and everything. But we haven't lived in a world without coercion, without people owning other people and controlling other people. And in general, the past was significantly less oppressive at times for some people, only because really elites didn't have the technical ability to control your life so thoroughly. Not because of lack of trying or from desire.
Well, if you shoot them in the face, they lose the technical ability to control you.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good segue to the idea that whether is technology going to allow us to be more or less free, and I don't think there's a black and white answer to that.
I think that
both could be true.
Yeah, I
would
too.
agree with you there.
It's up to us.
And it depends on how we use it. I mean, I know a lot of liberty-oriented engineers who are going to be out there, who are really out there to make information free. But then there are also a lot of engineers working for the government.
Yeah,
so
they'll do that
we'll
too.
see which side can out-engineer the other. My bet is on the free marketers.
And my big bet is on crypto. I think that there's going to be a lot of advances in terms of privacy, things that we can do that we could never do inside our traditional banking system.
Well, the crypto, they've already out-engineered the system. It's just the system has its establishment, and it's got a lot that it's sort of coasting on, basically.
We need adoption.
They got the network effect, basically.
Yes. So if you take credit cards and you're paying a 3% fee to take credit cards, maybe you should rethink Bitcoin.
And get over to help me
or
take
even better,
Bitcoin.com.
Bitcoin Cash.
Help me take Bitcoin.com will help you take Bitcoin.
Penguin, thanks for your call. Well, that's all the time we have, but I want to thank you for joining us here on the show. Be sure to stay tuned tomorrow where we'll have more calls, more stories, more fun. This is Free Talk Live.
Would you like to hang out with Penn Jillette? He's keynoting Freedom Fest this year. I, for one, am thrilled. Freedom Fest is the largest liberty-oriented gathering in the world. They take a Big Ten approach with libertarians, conservatives, liberals, anarchists, capitalists, and just open-minded people mingling together to hear real debates, share real solutions, and converse freely. This year's theme is the Wild West, a time of liberty and opportunity, or a time of anarchy and violence. Maybe both. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and get your tickets now. freedomfest.com/FTL. Not convinced yet? Hey, I understand. It's a high-end event. Even with coupon code FTL50. Sure, you're likely to receive investment advice that'll make that sum seem paltry, but I have something special for you. Go to freedomfest.com/FTL and you'll get the 5 best speeches from last year for free. Call it a test drive. Do yourself a favor and go to freedomfest.com/FTL. freedomfest.com/FTL. Use coupon code FTL50 for a discount.
This is a special alert for business owners, consultants, coaches, folks planning retirement, entrepreneurs, and anyone who is saving and investing to build a financial future. You are likely aware that financial privacy for most people has recently died a miserable death. And let's face it, without privacy, there really is no security, is there? Bankrupt governments and banks on the verge of collapse are perhaps the biggest threat to your financial future today. The Lighthouse Law Club recognizes this and has been working diligently to provide safe, secure, and productive tools to ensure your privacy, your financial security, and your future financial well-being, despite the catastrophes which many people fear are looming ahead of us. Find out more with a variety of free videos on the YouTube channel for Lighthouse Law Club. Just search YouTube for Lighthouse Law Club and secure your future today.